I am Geoff Eido. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. How? My guest today is the amazing Amy Butaski. Amy is a personal empowerment coach, and she does seminars and dealing with people's desires and sexuality and sensuality and really awakening those parts in us that may be dormant or repressed. And she's just a powerhouse of a human being, and she's an incredible voice for women's empowerment. And I'm just really pleased and honored to introduce you all to my friend, Amy Butaski. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Geoff. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. On today's episode, we will be talking about sex, the existence of sex. We'll also be talking about sexual trauma and sexual healing. And so if that's something that you don't want to listen to or get into, just skip this episode. No big deal. We'll see you next time. I know you and I both have a history of doing some landmark education.
Hell yeah.
And so that's been super valuable for both of us. But then you've obviously branched out, you've done your own thing. And I'd love to hear the story of like, what you're doing, but also like, why, why did you get it? What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing, Amy? What are you doing over there? You know what I mean? Give us a little,
how long do we have?
An hour.
Okay. I'll try to keep it as concise as possible, because I could probably do a 10-hour podcast on just how I got here. But
okay.
I started out my personal growth and development journey at Landmark. Loved the healing, education, transformation that I experienced there. And what I got from that work was so much like creating my life and living life from my design, and like choosing how I want to live and choosing how I want to create my relationships and my job and where I'm living and like all these amazing things. And I did that. After college, I lived in New York City. I'm from Maine. So I was like small town girl, moved to the big city. It was so my dream. And I was working in a corporate office, for a startup, and I had really created that. I was doing what I wanted to do, and I could feel that something was missing. And I was doing, seminars and courses on the side of my full-time job, and everything on paper looked really good, right? I had a great job. I lived in New York. I had great community, beautiful relationships with my family. I had a good relationship with money. Like there was a lot that was really working well for me, but my relationships with men were shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that isn't the case for everyone. In Landmark courses, for example, like I was doing many, many, many courses, and my relationships with men were still not working well. Yeah. But for me, I needed a different kind of education personally.
Sure.
And so that's when I started venturing down the path of studying desire, intimacy, sex, orgasm. And it's interesting. I've always loved talking about sex. My parents are very sex positive, very affirming, very loving, very educational around sex. They really raised us in a sex positive house. But it didn't stop me from gaining and taking on conditioning, programming, shame, right? From our culture, from our society, right? Don't talk about it. It's shameful. It's bad. It's right. Whatever. Fill in the blank. We all have our programming.
Your private parts. Keep it private.
Yes. Private parts or whatever you call it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whatever made up term your family passed down to you.
Yeah.
So I still inherited shame just from our culture, and probably also from my older generations above my parents, because they had broken the line of a lot of inherited beliefs. So
lucky you.
What? Very lucky
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So really my parents met at Landmark. So,
okay.
Okay,
cool.
they were doing a lot of inner work before they had me and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So I was living this great life. My relationships with men were shit. And one of my dear friends, Ellie Montgomery, who's now my business partner, but at the time was just a friend. She started down this path, and she was going to courses and like learning about, women's pleasure and desire and living from your turn on and your ignition, your inner ignition. And I was like, what? Okay. Yes. This sounds amazing, but
sounds hot.
It sounds so hot, and it was so hot, but I was like such a yes. Like I had this pull for this, but but I also felt equal aversion, right? Equal aversion to what I was hearing that she was practicing. And like, for example, one of the practices was orgasmic meditation, which is a 15-minute clitoral stroking practice with a partner. So I was like, even with a partner, which I didn't have at the time, I was like, 15 minutes of just having my clitoris stroked? Like, what? That's awkward. Like, that's uncomfortable. And then I'm not reciprocating. What do you mean? Like, there was just so much. And then I was like, but I don't have a partner. So then I'd have to partner with other people. And that's scary. And I don't, all of my shit was like right there. I was like, I don't want to do this. But there was something in me that also wanted to explore these practices, these things that felt taboo to me, that felt unknown and uncomfortable. Because I could feel that there was freedom on the other side, right? That's usually the case. If it's like, that sounds really uncomfortable and weird, like there's usually some freedom on the other side if there's actual alignment and desire, right? So, and there was, one of my teachers says desire and aversion are two sides of the same coin. So when there's strong aversion, there's usually some sort of strong desire that's equally there or to explore, right?
That explains a lot, actually,
Doesn't
in our
it?
culture. It really does when you think about it. Homophobia and just how far, how deep that goes. God forbid
all of
you
it.
think a dude is attractive.
I know.
Anyway, not to totally get off the subject, but that's a real thing. We should be more open to how we feel.
Absolutely. We can talk about that
it.
too. I'd love to, because it's all that alone, that frame is so healing.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, okay. Well, every time I'm feeling an aversion to something, can I get curious about it? Can I get curious about myself? Can I just self-inquire here and see if there's some sort of desire maybe, or some interest or something that I'm not actually being honest about? And then that can just like free up so much permission, right? For ourselves and for other people.
For sure. So, and then there's an assumption where like, if you allow yourself to think about that or open yourself up to that then you have to act on it, which you don't.
Right.
You make choices.
It's a huge part of the desire path is like being able to just have desires, express desires, right? Not necessarily act on them. Doesn't mean you're going to have every desire that ever comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said yes. I eventually, through much resistance, dove into learning these kinds of practices and learning from different teachers. And I dove into the orgasmic meditation world and philosophy. I studied with Mama Gina. I studied with Jaya, who's the one that created the erotic blueprints, and did tantra trainings and all sorts of incredible methodologies, modalities, right? Working with different teachers who inspired me. And my life completely transformed.
Okay. And
starting with my relationship to my body. So I was very much living in my head. Right. We are conditioned to live in our head. We're in a very kind of masculine energy dominated culture. And that's very much right. Head, doing, creating, holding goals, like,
get
right.
Get it done. Get it done. Go get it done.
And I was good
smart.
at that.
Yeah.
I was really good at that. But it had a cost.
Yeah.
And the cost was that I was completely disconnected from my body, my heart, my gut, my pussy, right? We use the word pussy very affectionately and with a lot of approval and celebration. And I was not living from my body. I was living from my head and what I thought would and I was happy to a certain extent for sure. But I was like, something's really missing here. And there were parts of me that I wasn't loving because I wasn't even willing to look or go there. So that sent me on this path, and the desire-led path, which is what Ellie and I teach now through our company Desire on Fire and our courses, is not just like sunshine and rainbows. It's not just like, yay, pleasure, whatever you want, you can have it. Like that is one beautiful element of it. Yeah. A lot. You can have a lot in your life if you're willing to open to share it and ask for it and receive it. And yes, that is true. But another big element of it is like looking at what you've been avoiding, right? Looking at what you've been suppressing, hiding, pushing away into the shadows, and doing like deep shadow work, excavation of your secrets, your shame, your fear, because that's what gets in the way of living from our truth and our desire, right?
100%.
So that's part of how I got here. Much more to say, but that's a bit of it.
That's great. That's really fascinating. I really want to appreciate you, for taking that path on. It's so necessary. Like, I'm moved, that's what you do. And that's how we know each other. Is my wife took your course.
Yes.
It's just one of the missions of my life is to really like to embrace and honor the feminine. People have this weird idea that feminism is like, oh, well, women are better. No, it's not. Women are equal. I mean, I wouldn't say better, but, I can't give birth. So there's something about that. And for sure, in terms of like the way that sexuality is discussed and educated and, and also experienced in our culture, it's just so puritanical still and weird. Yeah. And then now there's porn. So it's like, we're just seeing all this stuff that's pornographic and people are, whatever, doing things that normal people don't do. Okay. Right. For a really long time. It's like just a very miseducation kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I really
that's where a lot of people get their education, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially now.
It's not based in reality of what sex is actually like and what people often want. Sure, there are some truth in the desires or fantasies played out in porn, but a lot of it is just so performative and fake and architected, and it's just not actually the truth of the messiness and awkwardness and imperfection and all of that is true intimacy.
Yeah. And there's so much, I mean, it just sort of piles onto the shame and kind of the predatory nature of I hate using this term, but it's accurate, toxic masculinity, that it just sort of builds on that and sort of gives people, in a way, actually, it can be beneficial because then somebody who wants to do some weird shit can just go jerk off. And then that's great. And so then go porn,
Yeah, totally. There's a purpose.
But if it's training you
right
on what to do, it's probably not going to work out so good.
No. Yeah. I know what you mean about not liking the word toxic masculinity. And I try to use like unhealed masculine traits or immature masculine traits, because it's not, I don't think that masculinity is toxic at all. I think masculinity is amazing. Yeah. And like when it's healed and online and mature masculine, it is fucking magnificent.
Agreed.
And that is unfortunately, to your point, not what's being displayed and modeled, right, in most of our society.
Absolutely.
And then these traits are sort of enabled and encouraged, and it's unfortunate for everyone.
Yeah. And I have like a couple of nephews, and we haven't really had a lot of, sex talk. I feel like they're well-rounded and they figured it out somehow. I don't know how, but I think probably my sister has had good conversations with them.
Great.
But like, I just, having gone through my sex education was, we were in health class and my gym teacher came in and showed us slides of chancres and genital warts and like all these things, and talked about AIDS was big at that time when I was being educated. It was just absolutely fucking terrifying. Like the results of the class that we took was, don't even think about having sex. And if you do, you're probably going to get a disease. In Omaha, Nebraska, with a bunch of people who don't have sex with anybody else. It's not like, this isn't Vegas at the brothel. Okay.
Right.
So the message was, be terrified of sex. Yeah. It's gross. And, and at the same time, of course, as a young man, there is no stronger force in the universe than the testosterone of a 17-year-old boy. Like it is powerful, and you don't know what to do with it. And so then the education is all, it's like, and also you don't know, well, how do I, you want to fuck everybody. I mean, or women, whatever, however you go, right? You want to fuck the things.
Could be everyone. Yeah.
Could be everyone. Exactly.
Which might also then be confusing. So then there also aren't healthy models and conversations about that.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And for those
when we're young, we don't really care.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
I didn't. No. I didn't care. No, I wanted to play with everyone. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's not like a lot of context around, well, how do I have these desires and feel the way that I do, and also, like have honor, how do I understand sex as not something that's shameful, but first of all, the thing that got me here in the first place.
Yeah.
There's no, it's a really, it's such a tangled web. It just makes no sense why there's so much shame around sex when that is the life-giving act. It's really the most sacred act that we could possibly point to of things.
Yeah.
It's a miracle thing is sex.
It is.
So like re-educating and also figuring out, well, how would we, I like to think about, well, if I could design a course that went into public schools, and what would be the core tenets that I would want to teach? So let me ask you that. What would be the core tenets that you would teach?
It's funny that you're asking this because Ellie and I just led a sex education call for parents 2 weeks ago, just as a way to be of service to the community. It was free. It was just like anyone could come. Didn't have to be our clients or community members. It could be anyone. And it was so beautiful. And I was inspired, because my mom and dad did such an amazing job with educating us around sex. And as we were leading up to the call, my mom's also one of our clients. She loves our Desire on Fire programs. And she was like, she loves them. She gets so much out of them. She's 70.
Wow.
And
cool.
And she was just like, oh my God, I thought of another story. I thought of another story from when we were educating you, and, the questions that came up and the embarrassment, and, she's just sharing about it. And I was so grateful because I could use those examples. I don't have kids, right? Ellie has a 1-year-old, so she's not having sex talks with him yet. So we're just like, we aren't speaking to kids about sex, but we're speaking to adults about sex a lot.
Sure.
And it's the same shame. It's the same shit that's there when they're talking to their kids or when they're talking to us, right? It's the same embarrassment. So to answer your question, I would say a number of different things. One is to just speak about that sex is a beautiful thing, that it is sacred, that it is fucking powerful and magnificent and wonderful. And that there are potential outcomes or consequences, even though I don't like that word because it has such a heavy connotation, but there are potential outcomes that could occur, right? If you take the vulnerable step of having sex with someone, right? And this is how my parents taught it to me, and I'm so glad. And they said, so here's what could happen. It's a beautiful thing. It's pleasurable. It's wonderful. It can create so much love and connection. And you could get pregnant. If you get pregnant, you may have to deal with having an abortion, having a miscarriage, giving it up for adoption, or raising a child.
Wow.
Those are potential outcomes, right? And then you could receive, you could contract a sexually transmitted disease. Here are the different types that could happen, right? Most of them are treatable, curable. And you could develop an emotional attachment to this person that could be intense to untangle or unwind, or could be painful to end after you have sex with them. Okay, great. Clear. So they said, we would encourage you not to have sex until you are available for and able to be responsible for any of those potential outcomes. Now, I think that's good advice. Did I? No, I had sex when I was 16. Could I really maturely was I emotionally available to handle all of that? No, I fortunately didn't have to. But I think part of that is because I was so educated and aware of myself and the potential risks or outcomes or consequences, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, is setting it up. The frame is that it's awesome. The frame is that it's beautiful. The frame is that it's magical. It can literally take you to altered states of consciousness. It can create life. It can do all of these things. And there are risks. So we should just be aware of the risks and the rewards, but not leading with the risks and not scaring kids off with the risks as though that is the bigger thing to focus on, or that is the thing to weigh more heavily, because it's not.
No. And I feel like there's an automatic shame about all of it, to feel that way and have those feelings. And there's no open space for you to feel that way. Certainly that was the case with me with the health class, with the shankers and all the things, what I mean? It's so gross. So gross to think back on that. What a terrible horror show.
Totally.
But we laughed about it later, but still, it's the images are stuck in your mind. And
they scare you. I get that. And just to acknowledge for anyone listening, if you do have shame around sex or shame around having an STD, for example, STI, there is no shame around having a condition. It's why don't we have shame around, I have eczema. Okay, no shame. Yeah. Oh, I have herpes. Oh, shame.
Yeah.
It's like you have a condition in your body that's manifested through potentially, sores or a rash or another kind of symptom. Yes. Okay. You're having a human bodily experience, right? I'm sorry that you're having a human bodily experience if it creates discomfort for you or pain, right? But generally, it's not a problem. And so many, like I said, STIs are treatable, are curable, or rarely have any impact on anyone.
Right.
Especially if you know about it, you communicate about it, which is another thing I would teach in sex ed, which is a conscious sex conversation, as we call it. And we teach it. I don't know if we taught it on the call that you were on. We might have, but we teach a different, I have two different kind of frameworks, acronyms that we teach. We teach one of them in our program for adults. But we taught a similar one for the sex ed call that I learned from a different sex educator. And essentially just is going over boundaries, desires, sexual health status. When were you last tested, right? Do you have any STIs? What are your aftercare needs? What are you wanting from this interaction? What does this mean to you? Or it means we're friends? Does it mean we're friends with benefits? Does it mean we're getting married? What does this mean to you?
Yeah.
And being able to have a conscious conversation about this,
creating a context.
So many adults are terrified to do, let alone, kids aren't set up, or, teenagers aren't set up to have these conversations. But if they were, we would be living in a very different world.
Yeah.
And one of the women on the call, in the sex ed call, is an educator. She's a teacher. And she was like, I have people ask me all the time, like, when's the right age to have sex? When's the right age to have sex? And she's never really had a good answer, because of course it's personal and, you decide for yourself. But she's like, what I'm feeling and seeing now is when you can have this conversation. That's when the time is that you can have sex, right? It's like, if you can go through the portal of like having the uncomfortable conversation, sitting with your potential embarrassment or fear or discomfort, saying, let's talk about this. If you can move through that, you are probably mature enough to have sex.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Right.
However old that
and
is.
I'm not saying that 16, 17-year-olds shouldn't be. I'm glad I had sex at 16. I just wish I had these tools.
Yeah. Here. Yeah. Same. I also,
Yes.
I think I had sex when I was almost 16, when I was like 15. And again, I wish part of me wishes that I hadn't. It was really like a beautiful time, and I really was really in love with this person at the time. So it was like a deep experience, but then also there's so much shame still around that, and like how you express that. And so I think like that's something that is worth talking about. Like, how do you acknowledge your shame? For me, it's like, it's been said that shame is one of the tools of the devil. And I really think that's accurate, because it's such a suppressive force, and it can be it's so toxic, and it really like just takes the love out of you. And one of the things that we talk about a lot on this program is what I like to call the love operating system. Asking myself, how do I love more? How do I give more love to other people? How do I give more love in my work? How do I actively embrace love, even in times of like where there's conflict and it's hard? How do I love more? How do I have compassion for that person, get where they're coming from, see who they are and where they're coming from? How do I do that instead of coming from our inherited fear-based model, the fear-based operating system, or the greed-based operating system, or the shame-based operating system? Yeah. And so for me, whenever I encounter shame in myself, I do my best to not ignore it, to acknowledge it. It doesn't always work. I know that there's some shame pockets hiding up in here, but
you're human.
I'm human. But when I see them, like I really work on like, oh, okay, why am I feeling shame with this? Like, I was a smoker for a long time. There's a huge thing about having shame with the cigarettes. You have to get over that game. And whenever I see it, it's like I have to give myself permission and say, well, wait, I own this. I own this feeling that I have. And it's okay to be the way that I am and feel the way that I do and have the emotions that I have or the desires that I have. And it's okay to just heal that and let it go. And I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, turning towards the things that we have shame around is what helps to heal and integrate and allow the release or the loving that part or whatever, right? It might be something you want to let go of. It might be something that you just want to love about yourself, right? that you were a smoker, or that you may still be a smoker, or that you may occasionally have a cigarette, and these things we do have cultural shame around, and we have internalized shame. And yeah, I mean, it's a taboo conversation when we get into the things that we feel collectively as a culture are bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Right. There are things that there's agreement around in our culture. Like, for example, sexual assault. Those people are bad, period. Right. What they did is bad. They are wrong. They are shameful. They are scum of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, no. They are human, having a human experience, and they have a reason for why they did that, which is probably their own shame.
Yeah.
Whether it's that they don't think they can express and have their desires met consensually, whether it's because they have received, experienced, right, been victim to or at the effect of sexual abuse or sexual assault themselves. And then they think that that's what's normal, or that's love, or that's what they know, right? These are just examples. There are so many other reasons and versions of this. But to me, it's like getting curious about the things that we feel shame about, and that our culture collectively agrees are shameful or bad. When we can turn towards it, bring love and approval there, doesn't mean that there isn't a cost, that there isn't impact, that there isn't harm that gets caused to ourselves, right? Smoking. It's not like, yay, you smoke, good for you, it's all good, don't have shame. No, you can say like, wow, there is a serious impact to this. There's serious harm that I've done to my body, or serious harm that I've done to other people.
Yeah.
And how can I love this part of me, or the trauma that then manifested in these actions or these ways of abusing my own body or other people's bodies? How can I turn towards that, love it, heal that, integrate that part of me so that I don't need to harm myself or another again
and
in
also,
that way?
Yeah. And also, how do I make amends for it? And, really like,
how can I clean it up?
Yeah.
Yes.
How do I do that?
How can I own it, take responsibility for it, make amends for it, right? With myself or others, whoever's been impacted by that shameful act, that thing that was coming from an unhealed place or an immature place or a place of trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, on the other side of it, women, I mean, it's just like, that's one of the things that is hard for me to accept is, I don't know what the statistic is, 40% of women or something have experienced some level of like, rape or violation or something.
I think it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 women.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's probably more because people don't talk about it, or they're like, that was no big deal, or I was drunk.
Very true.
But then there's so much shame for them around that, and like they allowed it to happen, but they don't, it's so confusing.
Yep.
For them. And it's so important to just allow them to heal as well, and just really come to terms and come to be at peace with that, and not blame themselves for it, and not act like, oh, well, I brought this on brought this on myself, or I invited this, I mean, there's something to be responsible for your reality. There's something beautiful about fully being responsible for your reality and everything that's happened and your reactions,
Yes.
That's incredibly liberating. But then also you have to like just then eliminate any sort of blame about it or shame about it, and just be in acceptance and love, and give yourself permission to be the person that you are. 'Cause you were a child of God, if you will,
Absolutely. And I just want to say, because men are also victims of sexual abuse, that it's both ways, right? Women can also be the perpetrators. Men can also be the victims, right? This is true, all relevant for all of us, right? Because I just went through this with a close friend of mine, male, who's uncovering sexual abuse from his childhood, deeply impacted through his whole life by this. Part of the reason he hasn't healed it is because it's not a common conversation. And then even when it is a common conversation, not to anyone's fault, it's more about women being the victims of it, right? And it's like men are equally affected.
Yeah.
And often the perpetrators because they have been the victims, right?
Yeah.
So the healing, the healing is so necessary. The conversations about this, it's just like talking about sex is a beautiful thing. And all of this coming to the surface and being able to address it and talk about it with love and ownership and personal responsibility is just, to me, the medicine for the world. It's like what can really shift things. But until then, we're just going to keep suppressing and denying and shaming and keeping it all under the carpet. And yeah, we got a ways to go as a culture.
Yeah,
but we're doing the
definitely.
work. And that's what I wanted to say is that this is so much of what we do in our work at Desire on Fire. And I led a retreat this weekend with Ellie, and this came up a lot, these conversations of, having experienced trauma or abuse, or, also been the cause of certain, harmful behavior that might've been impactful or painful for others. And then also the confusing elements of, well, I think it was abuse, I wasn't a full yes, but then there was pleasure in it. And then what do I do with that? And why was it pleasurable? The confusion around it. And then no one's talking about it. It's like, first of all, it's completely normal for you to feel pleasure in your body when you're experiencing a sexual act, even if you weren't a full yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that. Let's allow you to have and hold both, the duality of both, right? Let's bring that to the surface here and not have shame around it, right? Just let the shame melt away as we talk about it. And then the ways that then manifests in that woman's life or that man's life, that won't then be passed on to their children.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. We end the cycle.
That's how we break the
suffering.
cycle.
Yeah, exactly. Which I'm all about that life.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying this program, if you love Lunacy, please consider becoming part of our team. Go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast to become a member of our team. You can choose a number of different levels to support us on a monthly basis so that we can continue the work of exploring the love operating system, how best to be of service, and how to live life to the fullest. Thank you so much for your support. Much love, everybody. Okay, so I'd love to talk about consent discussions, because I mean, even it's funny, even with my wife, who I met at Landmark, we didn't have a consent conversation. It was consensual. We made sure everything was cool, and it wasn't like there was any weirdness or anything like that. Yeah. But it wasn't like we sat down and said, "Well, what do you consent to? What do you want to do? And how, what's out of bounds?" And
yes.
But I think really that's the way forward. Is like the BDSM people have really figured the shit out. They have. So yes. So let's go into that. Like, what's you're starting to date somebody, you're interested in somebody, you guys both obviously, there's the twinkle, you're at the point where you're like, yeah, something fun could happen here. We could do something. Yeah. What do you do? How do you, let's do a little, play it out for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to, because I'm single, dating. I have these conversations with men. My business partner is married with a baby. So we kind of bring the different poles of experience and relationship and relationship styles. So so I love the framework RBDSMA. This is a acronym that I learned from a tantric lineage and school called ISTA, which is an International School of Temple Arts. It's an amazing school for healing and learning about sex and intimacy and shamanic practices. And I loved I've done their level 1 training. They have other trainings, but this is a lesson that a tool that they teach from one of their teachers created it. So RBDSMA, and then I'll tell you how I set it up. So the way that the acronym, what the acronym stands for is R is relationship. So who are you in relationship with outside of this moment, this disconnection that could be impacted? Mm-hmm. Are you dating other people? Are you in a relationship? Is this a poly connection, right? Are you just getting out of a breakup? Are you healing from something, right? Have you been with any of my friends? Like, let's talk about our relationship and your relationships with others.
Okay, good.
So that's the first one. B is boundaries. So what are your boundaries? And this is you can do an amended version of this, right? Anytime with your spouse, with your partner. I can tell you the amended version. But B is boundaries. So maybe you have general boundaries. Like in general, I'm a no to being choked. This is not true for me, but I'm a no to being choked, for example, because, you don't even have to say why, but I have a friend that has like a hard boundary around being choked because she thinks it's from a past life, but was drowned in a past life. And so has a lot around like anything like constricting her airway, right? Makes sense. So she's a no to being choked. Great. So you could have any array of boundaries. It could be general no's or it could be a no for today, right? Honey, I really want to play. but I'm just a no to penetration, right? I'd love to just touch. I'd love to explore. I'd love oral sex, but I'm a no to penetration. Or it could be something more general, like I'm a no to anal play. I don't feel open to anal play or anal penetration. And so I just want to acknowledge that now. Beautiful. So just acknowledging your no's. And you can say I'm a no to, or I'm not open to, or I'm not available for, or I'm not a yes to today. Or my body isn't feeling receptive to X, right? So you can say it however you want. Sometimes I'm a no to this can sound harsh or like a wall. So it depends on how you deliver it. I like to say I'm not open to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels
good.
a bit more like it's less
better.
of a wall and more of just like, hey, here's what my body's a yes or a no to, right? It's just I'm not open to that today, but I could be open to it another day.
Yeah. Call me in a week. All right.
Yeah.
We'll talk
Seriously.
blowjobs.
I don't want anal today, but let's try it next week, maybe. So that's boundaries. And then desires, right? Is desires. What do you desire? And so sometimes it's more general. It could be like, I desire to be in a relationship and I desire to have loving connected sex, or it could be more specific. So it could be like, I desire, a full body massage, and I would love for you to go down on me and play with my pussy and give me a pussy massage for 20 minutes. And then I'd love to have penetrative sex and really like soul connected, energetic, like full body orgasm sex. And then I'd love to take a bath together.
Nice.
Okay. So it could be really specific. Yeah. Or it could be really vague, right? Just like, oh, honey, I just want to have like a really connected night with you and cuddle and just see where it flows.
Yeah.
This is where our courses really help, because a lot of women are like, how would I even say all of that? Right. Or men.
Right.
How would I even acknowledge all of that? I don't even know what I want until we're in it.
Yeah.
So it helps to develop the muscle of desire so that you actually know what you want and can express it. And you don't have to say, okay, I want these 10 things in order to have it, right? That's not required to have a consensual experience, but it can help.
Mm-hmm.
And then RBD, S. S is sexual health and safety. So what's your STI status? When were you last tested? Have you had unprotected sex since you were last tested? With whom? When were they last tested? However, whatever's relevant to share. And what's your preferred form of contraception? If you use contraception, right? Is it pull out? Are we using condoms? Are you on birth control? Talking about all of that. And then one little thing there is we encourage people to say, I was last tested in December. My test results were clear versus clean, because clean then kind of has a connotation of, right, like that if it's not clean, then it's dirty, right?
Oh,
if you have a test result that says you do have an STI, then you're then dirty, right? It has that connotation. So
yeah, indeed.
Test results were clear if they were, or here's the STI that I have, and here if I'm on medication or my last outbreak, or here's my relationship to it. And then that's S. M is, I'm sorry for the dog. I don't know if you're hearing the dog, but
Dog's okay. We're pro dog on this show. How?
Yeah, okay, great. Amazing. Yes. Pro howling.
Yeah.
Pro barking.
Go dogs.
Yeah. Awesome. There's like a delivery person here, so he's going nuts. Okay, so M is meaning. Meaning is, what does this mean to you? Is this a one-night stand? Does this mean we're dating? Are we friends with benefits? Does this mean that we're in a relationship? You're my boyfriend now. You're my girlfriend now. Does this mean we're getting married? Mm-hmm. Does this mean we are married because we were waiting till marriage? Right? What does this mean? What does this mean? Because a lot of times we are not on the same page about it. And then what happens, right? When you're dating and you have sex with someone and they don't call, there's heartbreak, there's discomfort, there's insecurity, there's making up all the stories. Mm-hmm. It's so powerful to just say, what does this mean to you? What does this mean to me? Right. And there's other versions of this acronym. I like this acronym, but that have that earlier, right? The sexual health conversation earlier and the meaning earlier. Cause it's like, if you're wanting this to be friends with benefits and I'm wanting this to be that we're in a relationship, then like, we probably shouldn't have sex, which is fine to say at the end, but you could start with that before going over all the desires and boundaries. So it's up to you, but I just like the acronym. So you go over meaning, and then A is aftercare. So what do you need after this, right? To feel connected, taken care of. Do you need to cuddle after? Do you need to be told that you're loved? Do you need to have breakfast together, right? I love my go-tos I love sharing gratitudes after a play session.
Cool.
Yeah. And I love sharing favorite frames. So that's like favorite moments. A frame is like a snapshot, right? Like it's in a picture frame. So a favorite moment or a moment that had a lot of sensation or juiciness. And so that not only helps to digest the experience, but it also helps to like elongate the experience and like deepen it and expand it. Like, oh, it's still happening. We're still getting to talk about it, right? It's like, what's the word? Like energetic foreplay when you're talking about something beforehand, but then doing it afterwards. So I love sharing favorite frames and gratitudes. I just had a big sleepover party with my friends this weekend, and we had a really powerful night together. It's always powerful when my friends and I are together. That's just how we are. And then we woke up and made waffles and hung out. And then we sat down and I was like, let's share favorite frames from our experience last night. And because a lot happened, there was lots of laughter and lots of jokes, and then kind of had a whole shamanic experience and healing childhood trauma and, fears that came up and insecurities. It's just common Saturday night.
Yeah. Sounds like a party I want to go to.
Yeah. You would have loved it. It was amazing. And so we shared favorite frames the next day. And that's just fun. That's a way to digest. And I usually hold that conversation because I just love it. And they all loved it. So aftercare and just like permission to ask for what you need here. Like, do you need a text in the morning? Right? Like I've said, like, I need to talk the next day. Right? I need to talk the next day. And I love if you're the one to reach out. Like I love receiving a text or a call the next day. And you can get clear about it. Like I would love a phone call, and I love a phone call in the morning. I don't want to wait all day. Sometimes it brings up insecurity for me, right. Great. And then can the other person say yes or no to that? Are they a yes? And if they can't give you what you want for aftercare, you probably shouldn't be having sex with them.
Yes.
So also really important conversation to have beforehand. And then, so that's the RBDSMA. And then how I bring it up is I just like, whether it's like we're at dinner or, we're meeting for a drink. I don't drink, but, and I wouldn't recommend having drunk sex ever to anyone. But,
let's just stop there for a second. Cause I think that's really important, like to get into, like, because such our cultural norm is to just go out, get drunk and have sex.
Yeah.
And so what you just said is you don't recommend people have a drink and have sex ever.
Yeah. I said that I wouldn't recommend having drunk sex ever.
Sorry.
If you want to have a
Drunk
drink, there's a distinction there. Cause if people want to have a drink or like 2 drinks, okay, that's one thing. But, and I don't drink at all because I'm really committed to being super intimate with my life as it's actually happening and not having anything be like dimming it or numbing it or even like making me feel like fake, like the inhibitions are gone, but then when I'm sober, it's not like that. And then it's like, what's actually real? I'm so committed to bringing all of those parts of me out sober that I used to drink to access, right?
Okay.
Like feeling flirty, feeling sexy, feeling confident, feeling free, feeling frisky, feeling, that I can dance, that I can move, that I can be like an animal, like all these things that I used to access drunk. Now I access sober because of the work that I do.
That's beautiful. That's great. So you're saying it's okay if you have a drink or 2 if that's what you want to do, but don't get shit faced and then have sex because it's
exactly. And I really recommend, to our students, I really recommend sober sex. I really do. Now I'm not here to control anyone, but like, I just really encourage that. Cause I'm like, even like a drink or 2 is like, why? Like, what are you trying to take the edge off? What are you even subtly numbing or desensitizing yourself from feeling, even if it's discomfort or a lot of sensation in your body? Like that is, if you can hold that soberly, the level of maturity and actual growth and sustainable shifts that creates is so different than if you do that always leaning on a drink or 2 or getting high or whatever, right? So yes, you do whatever you want, everyone listening, of course. And I would encourage not drinking or drinking less than you might normally in order to feel a bit more comfortable or a bit more courageous, right? Can you access that sober?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, just speaking from personal experience, I used to drink a lot more. I still drink occasionally. But it's a lot more rare. And I hadn't really thought about it until we just are having this conversation. It's like, I haven't had drunk sex in a really long time. Granted, I'm married and everything, but like even
people
so,
who are married have drunk sex, right?
For sure. Absolutely. And, and I think one of the things that's so beautiful about it is, as you're saying, like it's something. There is such a deeper level of intimacy with the person that you're having sex with, and you're able, I think, to kind of like release any sort of shame that you might have about sex while you're doing it because of the fact that you're sober. Like those things are much more on the surface. Like you can see them because you're not twisted or drunk or whatever, or high. You can see them, but if that also gives you the opportunity to just say, okay, I give myself permission. I give myself permission to feel the way that I'm feeling, and even discuss that with the person. Like, whoa, I'm having a flashback to something that happened or whatever, or a feeling that like we shouldn't be doing this. I just want to acknowledge that and just let it go so that we can be totally intimate. It's a very different ballgame. And I think part of the misconception with people, myself included, is like, I need that in order to be able to feel that way. But really, like, and alcohol or whatever, seems like it's an easy gateway to just allow me to feel those things, but it's like a crutch. And then I don't feel it as deeply as I would if I just acknowledged the shame that I'm having or the feelings that I'm having, and gave myself permission now. Yeah. Like, so I just invite myself and everyone else to try it out. You know what I mean? Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what your plans are, but go for it, sober.
Well, next time you have a chance, go for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And that to me is intimacy. Like I feel way more connected to a man or whomever I'm playing with. If they're like real about, oh, this is coming up, or I'm feeling this, or I'm wanting to explore this desire, but I'm feeling a bit hesitant or a bit shy about it, or, oh, I'm feeling this, or actually I want to stop the sex we're having, or if this isn't feeling on for me anymore, or I'm feeling actually full from this experience. I'd like to stop, or I'd like to slow down or switch what we're doing. Feels so good. Mm-hmm. I trust the person. I trust myself more, if I can say that. And it takes fucking courage. Yeah. I know I've been teaching this for 5 years. I still bump up against my own resistance, shame, fear of saying the thing that could ruin the moment. Right. And we really encourage women to do that, right? Be willing to say the thing that could ruin the moment. Men too, but we work with women, right? So be willing to say the thing that could end the relationship, right? In your relationship that might feel so shameful or so taboo or you are so freaked out to reveal this about yourself. But be willing to say it for the sake of intimacy, right? Into me, you see. I'm going to let you in to see me here, even if it feels scary or uncomfortable, or I'm risking you hating me or thinking I'm unsexy or unlovable. Can I share it for the sake of intimacy, knowing that if this person is an aligned lover or partner, they're actually going to want more of you and want you more, the more you're willing to reveal and show up as you truly are.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. So I want to just, before we move on, I want to capitulate what you said.
Yeah.
So RBDSMA, relationship, talk about your relationship, where you're coming from or what you're looking for. Boundaries, talk about what your boundaries are. That's pretty clear. Desires, what you want, turns you on, what you really like. Sexual health and safety, what your status is, etc. If you're clear or not. Mm-hmm. Meaning, what does this mean to you? Like, how are you going to feel about it afterwards? What are we doing here? What's the context? And then aftercare, what I'm looking for afterwards. If I need a phone call the next day, if I just want to snuggle, like that. So that's really great. And that's a really good code for how to approach having sex with anybody.
Yep. And I'm really committed to having this conversation. I have this conversation with any new lover. I had sex with a woman recently, a few months ago. That's on my podcast for anyone that wants to listen. Had that conversation with her. She'd never had a conversation like that. I mean, most lovers, partners, lovers, anyone that I have contact with sexually, which is actually, by the way, very specific, and I'm very discerning. I actually haven't had sex in 9 months right now. And that's because I am very discerning about who I share my body with, who I open my body to. I speak about it so freely that it's like this lover and that lover and this lover, but I'm actually
Sounds
extremely
like you're just doing it all the time.
Yes.
Not the case.
Yeah. That would be fun. And I've had that also. Right. I've had that time too, but because I really, I honor all of my sexual experiences as lovers, because I just don't open my body to anyone that there isn't love with.
Yeah.
And so even if I'm not in love with them, I'm like, they're definitely a lover because they're with love there.
Right.
You know, if I mostly sleep with men and date men. And so I would say there has to be love in their heart and love in their cock.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Those are my, non-negotiables.
Okay.
Amongst some other things, but that's important to me. And so anyway, I just say that because I speak freely about it and like reference past lovers. Like there are many all the time, but it's more that each experience for me, each sexual experience is a lovership. Even if it's once, rarely do I have sex with someone once because it's just not what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But it's always with love.
Mm-hmm.
So just want to acknowledge that. And I'm really committed to having this conversation. So even if, I my last boyfriend in Bali a couple of years ago we were like kind of getting hot and heavy in the bedroom. Didn't think we were going to be having sex. It was like our third date. And so I was like, oh my God, we haven't had the conversation, but now we're like in it. And do I stop? Like I had that moment of like, what do I do here?
Yeah.
And I just was like, babe, I'm going to stop this. Probably didn't call him babe yet, but third date. I call everyone babe, but like in that context, I was probably like, hey, Jan, his name's Jan. I want to interrupt this for a minute and have a quick conversation. And then I just said, this is something that I'm committed to. This is something that I practice. This is something that's important to me to speak with any partner or lover or someone that I'm getting sexual with, to have this conversation before we're sexual.
Yeah.
So can we talk about a few things?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I set it up. And he was like, yes. And he was delighted. And of course it fucking transformed his life. It transforms every lover's life that I've ever been with, because then they're like, have a whole new context for relating. Right. And he's like, yeah, I was hard and I did lose my boner and I know I can get another one,
Right.
It's fine.
It always comes back. Yeah.
It always comes back. We never need to worry about that. And I was confident of that too. So it was just like, be willing to ruin the moment, knowing that it's going to benefit everyone, right? You two for sure, but then also anyone that they're in contact with after.
Yeah.
And that it's going to create so much more intimacy and connection and clarity which will open the sex to be even better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So I also want to talk about, you talk about, and I also talk about vulnerability a lot. And, there's a distinction between being like fake vulnerable, which I think is unfortunately becoming more and more common. And I would just encourage people to just not do that. There's no whatever. Like it doesn't serve you to be fake vulnerable, but being authentically vulnerable, being really, truly, actually vulnerable is such an empowering thing to do. And it really opens you, me, us up to just living our true lives and what we're really up to. And for sure it comes up in sex and like, it's just sort of another level. I feel like you and I we're like shame slayers,
Mm-hmm.
like that's the business that we're in. We're in the business of slaying shame and having people be fully empowered and living their true lives, their full lives. Yep. And so one of the keys to that is being willing to be vulnerable in whatever context it is that you are vulnerable. Like you might be listening to this conversation. You might be thinking, oh my God, this thing is coming up. I keep thinking about this thing that happened with such and such and so and so. And, I don't know what to do about it. Like, it's okay to just go cry about it, in the bathroom or whatever you need to do, or talk to somebody about it and bring it up.
Yes.
Like, and in fact, that's such a clearing, cleansing, healing experience. It's going to give you so much more. And by the way, there's also so much more to be healed underneath that. Sorry.
Exactly. It's just the first layer or the second.
Yeah. But the process of continuing to be vulnerable and really like see where it is that I'm hurt or traumatized or I'm stuck, and I can't move, there's such a strength in giving yourself permission to be vulnerable and just experience the rawness of whatever that trauma is that's coming up for you in life.
Yes.
And certainly that comes up a lot around sex because we have such a effed up context around it and that we don't talk about it and how sacred it is. And that we're still stuck in this like puritanical place that also includes porn. So there's just like this total extreme of like no real conversation about sex. And then we live in that place and we wonder why.
It's so confusing.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. You know, the power of vulnerability, the necessity of vulnerability, particularly when it comes to intimacy.
Well, I the first thing I'll say is just that when we're not actually vulnerable, we don't get to have the experience of being seen.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're not revealing.
Right.
Like we cannot be fully seen if we're not showing ourselves.
Yeah.
And to me, being vulnerable is revealing what's really going on, what's really happening in there. And anytime I really give it up and I really reveal it, whether it's to my business partner, to my friends, to my family, to my partners or lovers, to social media, the reward, the feedback, the level of seen I feel is so beautiful. And it's a direct correlation with how willing I am to give it up, to say the real thing.
Yeah.
To say the thing that could make me look terrible, make me lose all credibility, make me, right? It's like me saying, I haven't had sex in 9 months. I'm a fucking intimacy coach, right? I could worry, oh my God, that means no one's going to want to study with me because I am not even having sex. Well, there are many reasons I'm not having sex.
Right.
and like I have such beautiful experiences.
The fact that you,
what do you say?
For me, it builds credibility that you haven't had sex in 9 months, because that means you really do truly care about who it is that you're partnering with. But go on.
So much. Yeah. So much. And I've had beautiful experiences that weren't penetrative, and those have been beautiful and boundaried, right? Just, oh, that's not the resonant thing here.
Yeah.
And I could go on and on about it, but we rob ourselves of being seen by withholding.
Yeah.
So when we are willing to just give it up, go there, say it, look bad, right? Like look like a fucking mess. We risk looking like a fucking mess, which, by the way, it rarely even happens. We do a really powerful shame exercise in our highest level retreat, which we led this weekend. And it was so powerful. And you know, it's like what comes up, I'm laughing now, wasn't laughing then, but I can hold both. There's levity in it for me because I've done a lot of shame work and continue to. And, you know, the women are like, I don't want to say this because I'm just so afraid that you will just hate me and never see me the same. And I love that they name the voices, because it's like, those are the convincing voices. Right. You'll hate me. You'll never see me the same way. You'll disown me. You'll think I'm stupid. You'll think I'm a bad leader, teacher, parent, friend, sibling, fill in the blank. And of course, what pours out of each woman's mouth is just pure, like, I just want to love you more for your humanity, for your imperfection, for the thing that you've been holding the shame about that I just like so get and so relate to.
Exactly.
Every single woman.
Yeah.
Right? Always. And it's just, and then each woman gets to have this like huge release. And then this this lived experience of feeling so seen.
Yeah.
For every part, the parts that feel so shameful and scary and so have been hidden in the shadow, that it's like, oh, and then they can just be themselves more in the world. Yeah. There's so many benefits to being vulnerable, right? There's so many benefits to letting yourself be seen and revealing that, you know, you can be more yourself. You can be more free. You can be more matter of fact and like, no big deal about so many things that you were hiding behind before or hiding away. And then that creates so much permission for the world. Yeah. Right. I mean, people like say this about me a lot, that like, you can just say things that are like, what? Like, I cannot believe that just came out of your mouth. The most like so casually. And that is because I have practiced so much revealing, saying the thing that nobody else will say, that I can say it very freely. I still have places that are hard for me, of course, that feel scary to say, but it's become more and more normal. And then it creates so much more connection with the people around me. I create immediate intimacy with people, right? Because of my willingness to go there, say the thing, reveal, tell on myself. Yeah. And people are always like, whoa, how do you have so many friends and like such rich friendship and community? Yeah. And I'm like, this is how, like, I'm willing to go there. It creates such a permission field that other people are willing to go there, and the intimacy gets created like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's really great. That's so rich. I also I have one of my superpowers is friendship. And I really like
there's what you're saying, there's being intimate, being vulnerable, being honest with people, really actually caring about where they're coming from, who they are, like what their deal is. Like I'm really curious about other humans. Cause like, here we are, none of us knows what the fuck is going on here. I mean, at all. And like, the more we learn, the more we realize, whoa, we really, really don't know. And science is insane. And we're just atoms and whatever. There's something so rich about that level of vulnerability, being willing to be vulnerable with people. And also, and that's one of the things why I have so many friends as well, is because like, I'm just genuinely curious about who are you and what's your deal. And here we are, we're both breathing and neither of us knows why, you know, and we're both having experiences and we're both going to go through life and death and experiencing loss. And, you know, like, you know, my father just died. I just buried my father yesterday or 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And by the way, that was like a very vulnerable experience for me, sharing about my dad and who he was for me and our relationship.
Of course.
Good job. You found it. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, but I know also that other people, everybody's going to experience that. We're all going to lose our dad, you know?
Yeah.
And some of us don't have a dad, but anyway, we're all going to experience the loss of that caliber that really like just drops you to your knees, you know? And so I know, because I know that, then, you know, it's much easier for me to relate and be intimate with people and not judge them, you know? So that's something really beautiful that you brought up. And also like, I think it's really important to look at like that there's such a firm veil of suppression that exists in our society all over the place. Like, you know, go to Landmark. What are they going to tell you? The two things we really care about: looking good and being right. That's really all we care about. And we will not say anything that we think might interfere with that. We will hide and repress any kind of emotions and desires and thoughts that we have. We won't say anything. We'll just keep it closed, just so long as what I think it is like we have a primal fear of being banished or being executed. Like that goes back to our ancient tribal, you know, ways. Like if we say something wrong, they're going to kick us out of the tribe and we're going to have to live in the forest by ourselves, or they're going to execute us.
And we're going through that culturally right now with cancel culture. Yeah,
we are. Yeah, we are. And so then we repress ourselves in what we're going to say. But the reality is, first of all, I mean, I don't know, you know, what to say about cancel culture. You're still going to have friends and you're not going to go, they're not going to put you on an island and you'll still be able to go to the grocery store. So chill. But
but still also speak your truth. Yeah. But it is the risk. It's scary. I mean, I get it. I got canceled. So I got completely, you know, my Instagram got deactivated, and it was so upsetting for me. This was years ago, but it was really intense, and it felt like a modern day witch hunt. It felt like a modern day burning at the stake. It felt really intense on my system, my nervous system. I had to get a lot of energy healing and a lot of coaching, and to really come back to myself and be willing to be brave again, and sharing on social media after that. And like, it was for a post about unconditional love, but people could not hear it because it was like loving the people that we hate and that we see as enemies. And I was like, if that's what's getting me canceled, it's like, everyone's at risk, you know. It's like this is the culture we're in. I think we're kind of coming out of it a bit right now, but it was intense for a couple of years. Yeah. So that's a reality. And but that shouldn't stop us. Like, it's so much more important to just be vulnerable and really speak your truth and say who you are and not self-censor.
And, you know, if somebody doesn't like what you have to say, fuck them. I mean,
they're not aligned. They're not aligned with you.
I'm sorry to say it that way. I don't mean like, fuck that person. They're an evil person. But they're not for you. Do you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
There's plenty
They're
of
not
people,
an aligned match for you. I like to say they're not a frequency match. It's like not a bad person, but just, like fuck them being in your space. Yeah. Right. It's like they don't need to be in your space. They're not a frequency match for what you're calling in. And that was a big thing for me when I got canceled. Like lots of people were hate messaging me, lots of hate comments, lots of people unfollowed me, all these things. But then I was like, in surrendering to it, then I got so many more followers that were aligned and available for my medicine and what I teach and what I preach and what I share. And then it's like, yes, fuck them. Those who are not aligned, you know, fuck them to get out of my space, right? Not I hope they live a beautiful, healthy, happy life, but just not aligned for my space, my teachings, my containers, my online room, my online house, right? Like, or in person, like, okay,
or your
I can
mental
let that go.
and your mental house and your identity house. And you're like, I mean, I'm very much into this idea of being king, you know, or being queen. If I am king, how do I act? How do I behave if I am king? And I am king. I'm king of my life. You know, this is my reality. This is everything that happens, all of my reactions, even like, I mean, I just went through like a funeral. So you could only imagine all of the things that come up from childhood and all the different Geoffs that I've been in the past. And then how I relate to all these people that are now here with me, and how do I stand for my father, you know? But the thing that is so important is like really owning, okay, if I am king, then am I really going to allow this person's opinion to affect me or not? Mm-hmm. And it's not like, again, when I say fuck them, I don't mean like, you know, I don't think we need to say this.
It doesn't mean to hell with them.
It just means
out of your space.
I love you. God bless you. Good luck. Yeah.
Yes. Bless and release. I like to say bless and release.
That's beautiful. And so, and there's something so rich and powerful about that, owning, okay, well, if I do give myself permission to really speak my truth and they don't like me, what am I going to do? Because that's such a scary place to move through. And yet that's where the juice is. I am being called to say this thing or do this thing or perform this song. Like, I'm a musician. So like, I really want to perform the song, but I don't know, you know, people are going to think things about that. Maybe they don't like the music that I'm doing, you know, etc. I'm going to be for sure super vulnerable in front of these people. Like how, you know, but I really want to, that's my desire. I really feel it so strongly. I have to. And then just being willing to say, trust that I will find my tribe, that I'm being called to do this because that's part of my design, or God wants me to do that, or however you look at it, or the spirit flows through me to do this because I know it comes from a good, pure place, from my heart, comes from a love space. So I'm going to do it and just let the chips fall. Trust. And they're so liberated. So there's something so liberating about, like, it's like I just picture like just shaking off the shackles, you know, just like releasing the shackles that are holding me of other people's opinions and having that define who I am, not allowing that to be, really coming from heart space instead of, you know, just what other people's opinions are.
Yeah. And I think it ultimately creates so much more alignment and connection and satisfaction in the connections you do have when you are your full self and your true self. And then you're not constantly managing, manipulating, and contorting yourself in order to, you know, fit into the box of what the people around you want. When you are free and you let the people, you know, because there's a saying, when you stop people pleasing, people aren't pleased. Yeah. And you got to let them be unpleased, right? Just let them be unpleased. As you stop people pleasing, you drop those codependent patterns of how you manage and contort yourself. Then as you are more yourself, just the right people will stay. The right followers, community members, friends, right? Audience members, colleagues, peers, students, whatever, will remain. And you'll be so much more satisfied because they'll actually be real and love you for who you are and welcome your truth and your messiness, rather than continuing to have to perpetuate how you've been being and faking it and all the things. Yeah. So it might be painful. It might be a painful process as you start to change and letting people see it, but it's so worth it. Yeah. And even those, that's so great. And even those, you know, I've gone through a lot of transformations recently that have shifted the listening of people that are close to me. I got married in October to my wife, and there it was so beautiful. You know, we said vows in front of each other. I was wearing my kilt. I sang a song to her that I wrote for her. You know, it was so beautiful. But then that transforms the listening of all the people in my life that I brought there, you know. And then whatever ideas of like the immature guy that was afraid to do X, to sing in front of people or whatever it is, like now they have a different image of that because I've like spoken my truth. And even with the funeral that we just had, there were relationships that were potentially challenged by me fully speaking my truth. And I spoke it anyway. I said what I had to say. Well done. And
And so what I want to say about that is that those like close relationships, especially with like family or like really tight friends, you worry about, well, but they're not gonna, if I really say my truth, if I really am who I am, they're not gonna love me anymore. And like you said, what was the thing you said about pleased and displeased?
When people stop people pleasing, people aren't pleased.
Yes.
When you stop people pleasing, people aren't pleased.
Yes.
Yes.
And so unquestionably, there is a moment that you have to cross through where I know they're unhappy with the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing or saying what I'm saying or performing or whatever. I know that, but I don't care because that's who I am. And it typically, I find being who I am with them, because I love them compassionately and unconditionally anyway, the shift, the turnaround, the respect happens pretty quick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't, even if it's like straining and it's hard, like there's a way for you to just separate and cut ties with that for yourself and then come back to it later if you need to, with that person, maybe take a month or a year off or whatever.
Yeah. Could take a lot of time.
Could take a lifetime off.
Well, and one thing I want to say to that is, sometimes you will be like, I'm being me and I don't care what you think. And sometimes it'll be like, I'm being me and I care so deeply what you think. And I'm willing to sit with the discomfort of you not liking me. And I'm willing to get the support that I need to be okay with and be able to move on from how affected you might be by me changing or acting this way.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. That's really great.
Because I have had to get a lot of support. I have a therapist, I have coaches, I have a 12-step sponsor around my own codependent patterns and where I people please and where I go into rescuing and saving and fixing. So I have a lot of leader care, as we call it. Ellie also, I have an energy healer, multiple clairvoyants that I work with. I work with so many different people to help me emotionally regulate, feel emotionally sober, feel connected, drop my codependent patterns, show up fully as myself, fully resourced, right? So it doesn't mean like, because I'm fully myself and I'm so expressed and confident, does not mean that I don't have lots of shit come up that's like, oh my God, are these people going to hate me? Oh my God, if I cross this edge, if I move through this portal, if I come out in a whole new way, will my friends, peers, clients, students, old friends, right, partners hate me or dislike me or not see me the same or not love me the same anymore? It's just that I get this needed support around it such that I can fully be myself.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's so beautiful. And I think and by the way, I mean, I feel like I say this a lot on this podcast, but we are not perfect, nor are we speaking from any kind of like we have arrived kind of a place. In fact, it's totally the opposite. I find the more vulnerable I am, the more I discover deeper wounds. And then there's, ancestral things and God only knows whatever is going on in the backfield of Geoff Eido, It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's totally messy and it's okay to be messy. Like, I feel like the opposite sauce or the status quo is like, I've got to just look good and be right all the time and like hide everything and drink to quell the pain and, and just not truly express myself and then have my opinions. And then I come across angry sometimes to other people. And like, I just, gosh, it's so like, I've seen so much of that even very recently where I'm just like, God, I wish that you didn't need that crutch, or you just would allow yourself to be more vulnerable here in this moment without any, I mean, we're sort of delving into substance abuse, but I think that's part and parcel of the fact that we just won't allow ourselves to be ourselves. So
definitely. Absolutely. And we lean on substances or alcohol, whatever, or fill in the blank, porn, food,
sex,
right? Shopping. It doesn't matter. We're all addicts, in my opinion.
For sure.
We all are, because it's like we have vices, it's a lot to be with. Life is a lot to be with. The amount of trauma that we have, whether it's from our childhood or, to your point, generations before us or past lives. I mean, there's a lot to be with and to feel. And then being intimate, being vulnerable, being revealing, being our full selves. It's a lot of sensation, as we call it. We reference sensation in the body in our work a lot.
Yeah.
Because we're working with the body. And ultimately, that's really all it is. Like, whoa, this is a lot of sensation to be with. Whoa, this is a lot of sensation to be with. Saying that, doing that, being that, revealing that. Wow, that brings up a lot of sensation in my body that I don't want to be with. So expanding our capacity to be with sensation can really help with not needing to lean on vices as much. But yeah, facing the things that we don't want to feel or see when we want to eat, drink, do drugs, right? Whatever, watch TV, go unconscious in some way. That's like where our freedom is. That's where our power is. And can we love ourselves in those mechanisms, right? Whether it's food or alcohol or shopping or sex, whatever it is. Can we love ourselves and like, oh, wow, that's my mechanism. That's the thing that I do to avoid feeling this or confronting this or addressing this. And then can I slowly start to actually feel or address or confront or reveal the things that are there? And it's just armor. Like no armor is better or worse than another kind of armor. Can we have compassion for our armor? I certainly have armor, and I have been letting it release, melt away, you know, over the years of doing all this work. But like I still have armor. My armor comes up and I can get tough or I can get hard or I can get sharp. And that's when I get to have compassion for myself. Like, oh, scared little girl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scared little girl. What does she need? Did she feel embarrassed? Did she feel shame? Did she feel wrong? You know, how can I soften here? But that's more my default. It's like controlling and being hard rather than, you know, drinking, for example. I've never had a problem with alcohol. I don't like it, but there are other things, right? And everyone can hear it for themselves and fill in the blank.
For sure.
And it's just a compass for where we get to look and where we get to expand our capacities to feel and reveal.
Yeah. Nice. Beautiful. Okay. Just a couple more things and then we'll wrap it up here. Number one, something that really touched me about something that you said in the course that I took with you is, or that I guested in, was the gift of no. The gift of saying no and the gift of receiving no. And I think it's such an important thing. So I'd really love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, you know, especially in such a people-pleasing dominated culture that we live in, it's really rare for people to honor their no and speak their no and trust other people to be okay with their no. And so I was certainly one of those people. I did not like saying no and I did not like receiving no's. I would like, because I was so accommodating and willing and generous and all these things, often from a codependent place, then I would expect other people to be that way with me. So when people were not being generous, when people were not being reciprocating, you know, they weren't reciprocating their generosity, like after I've been generous with them, whatever. Or if I felt rejected by them, then it was really, I felt hurt. I felt upset. I felt angry. And I know that this is inherited because I see this pattern in my family.
For sure.
My mother's lineage. But I would go into, you know, armor or attack or upset. And now that I've shifted my relationship to saying no, I can so receive people's no. And so what we taught, I'm sure, when you came and were in that session was saying, if somebody meets you with a no, if they say no to your request, saying, thank you for taking care of yourself, or thank you for trusting me with your no.
Yeah.
Right. Or thank you for honoring your own boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's such a radical way to respond. And even if you're not feeling it, practicing saying that also helps you transform and shift your own relationship to saying no. It's like fake it till you become it. There's a great TED talk about that. You know, even if you're not fully feeling it, can you fake it till you become it?
Yeah.
It's like you're working the muscle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She says, fake it till you become it. She talks about like standing as in the Superman stance. Have you seen this one? And she's like, I forget what it's called. It's not called fake it till you become it, but that's what she references a lot in the TED talk. She talks about like standing in this Superman pose, like before you go into an experience or whatever, right? It's like, even if you don't feel that confident, like, can you stand in that posture? Can you work that muscle, right? Even if it's not that strong. And anyway, it's that. So when someone meets you with a no, even if it does hurt, like saying, oh, I'm feeling a little insecure. I'm having a story come up about this, or I'm noticing that I feel hurt. You can say that, but it's ultimately, you're starting it with, thank you for your no. Thank you for trusting me with your no. Thank you for honoring yourself enough to say your truth to me, even if I might feel hurt.
Yeah.
And that to me has me trust someone. If they're not constantly here to please me and say yes to me and, you know, say the thing that they think I want to hear, I trust them more. And so it actually benefits everyone when we have a strong relationship to our no. But certainly practicing it for ourselves help us have more permission and space to receive other people's.
Yeah, 100%. That's so beautiful. Yeah. That's great. I refer to that as the cape walk. if you act like you have this weighted cape on your shoulders, how do you stand? How do you walk around? And it just changes you do that for like 5 minutes, your whole world changes. It's amazing how quickly.
I love that.
So that's great. I want you to share how people, I know you're doing like a insane free 5-day seminar or something like that. Yeah. Is that right?
Yes.
Where do we sign up?
Yes.
I'm interested. Where,
well, unfortunately, it's just for women, but you can share it with women in your life.
Okay. Shit.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to deflate you.
That's
but
okay. Women are important.
We are excited because we are going to be doing co-ed stuff. I would say probably it's going to be in 2024. Okay. I'm like, what year are we in right now?
Yeah.
2023. So it'll be next year that we're going to start doing more co-ed stuff that's open to, new clients. Because right now we just have it that it's just our current clients and their partners or friends can come to certain sessions like you came to. But generally we just work with women. So as of now, so we have, so easiest ways. I'm on Instagram at Amy Butaski and at Desire on Fire, which is our company name. Super easy to find us. And then the best way to get involved is that we have this free event, like you mentioned, called the Pleasure Revolution. And that's happening July 10th through 14th. 5 days, 10 through 14. And it's incredible. It's 5 days. It's free. Ellie and I are teaching every morning. And then every afternoon we have guest teachers from all around the world speaking on living from your pleasure, your truth, your vulnerability, your mess, money and sex and relationships and business. It's like so much fucking packed content and power in 5 days. It's going to be amazing and everything's recorded. So if anyone has to miss sessions, they can watch them after they sign up. And that is pleasurerevolution.live.
Okay.
And we can, I'll give you the link. And we'd love to have people sign up for that.
So it's going to be like online kind of a thing.
It's online.
And why are you giving it away?
Because here's the thing. It's really hard to give this work to yourself. That's what we find. Okay. Right? It's already people's shame, fear, hesitation, discomfort, also not wanting to tell their friends, not wanting to tell their partner, not wanting, that's the world so many people live in. Not the world I live in. I'm like screaming from the fucking rooftops, but we have to be real about the world that most people are living in.
Right.
So there's already so many barriers to entry. Mm-hmm. And so we like to do this every year to give women an opportunity to do it for free so that they have an opportunity to have one less excuse off the table, right, that's in the way, to give this to themselves, to say yes to spending 5 days in the conversation of desire, pleasure, intimacy, sex, relationship, shame. And then there are other opportunities to work with us. We have a 4-week course. We have our in-person event in October, which is 3 days here in Austin. It is the most magnificent sisterhood weekend of healing, shame slaying, fun, transformation, desire-filled goodness. And that's called the Desire on Fire experience.
Yeah.
And we'll share about that with the women who come to the Pleasure Revolution 5-day event. But anyway, depending on when people hear this, right? If it's before July 10th, join us for the Pleasure Revolution for free. If it's not, follow us on Instagram, reach out, check out our website, desireonfire.com. Come to our event in the fall or just, find out about what we're doing. We'd love to have you involved.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. That's great. I'm stoked for you. I'm excited about the co-ed events. I'm going to get Christina to do another
I can't wait.
So
I can't wait to announce them. So many of our clients are and their partners okay, we're ready. We want to come. Yeah. We love what you're getting. Hey, when do we get to come too?
Men need education.
I know. So it's coming.
Yeah, that's great.
We like to make people yearn. So I think we're just in that yearning, teasing, anticipation phase right now.
Yeah, it's sexy. Yeah. I'm into it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Great. Okay, so I ask all my guests this one question, which is, for you, Amy Butaski, what is sacred and what is insane?
Well, immediately what's there for me is that everything is sacred. I like to say, I have a teacher that said this and I've adopted it because I love it. Is that can we welcome what is profound and what is profane? Right? It's that it's all two sides of the same coin. It's all connected, right? And so what's insane to one person is not insane to the next. Mm-hmm. What is crazy to one is not crazy to the other. And so much of what is sacred to me would be absolutely batshit crazy to the next person. A lot of what I talked about today. So I don't know. I mean, to me, all of it is because it's all God, right? To me, we're all God. It's all God. Even the painful stuff, even the shit that is just absolutely crazy making, absolutely devastating. it's all for us. It's all for our evolution, our transformation, our healing, our, learning. And I really can't think of anything that's not sacred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And the things that are the most insane are the best, I think. Like, that sounds like an insane idea. Let's do it.
Beautiful. That's so great. So great. Awesome. Well, I really want to just acknowledge you and honor you for the work that you're doing in this world, Amy Butaski. I really appreciate your spirit and your mission and how liberated you are and how liberating you are for other people. I really want to just thank you for doing the work that you do on this planet. I think it's so critical, so essential. And I really feel like you are spurning the renaissance that we are now experiencing in this world. And I really want to thank you for helping us to consciously evolve and heal ourselves and our lineage and our society and our world. I really want to just thank you so much for being you.
Thank you so much, Geoff.
Yeah.
Really, really appreciate that and receive that fully.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having this podcast. Thank you for holding these conversations, for all the evolution and transformation that you create the space for and help facilitate by what you hold, what you guide. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I got it. Awesome. Okay, great. As always, if you'd like to support this show and the work that we're doing, please go to patreon.com/lunacy and become a member of our team. We love you so much, everybody. We're so excited for you and your life. And we hope that this podcast, this conversation was beneficial and liberating for you. If you liked it, please share it with other people. And definitely go check out Amy Butaski's work. It's gonna totally light you on fire. Big time.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Much love.